Every man has at some point dreamed of becoming a martial arts master. The dream is often to practice justice and uphold loyalty in a chaotic world. It is a fantasy about the life of a hero journeying far and wide. The sound these masters create is said to be entirely different from an average man. While many dream of this life, not everyone is destined to experience it. For some, reality is not a sword, but the heavy grip of a blacksmith's hammer. The story begins in a lively town built alongside a shimmering river. A muscular man with long hair works tirelessly in a forge, shaping hot metal. Outside his workshop, the streets of the town bustle with people going about their day. Two young boys are seen play fighting with wooden sticks as an elder watches them. It's for this very reason, with the sound of steel ringing in the air, that young boys fantasize so much about the life of a martial artist. Inside the forge, a stern-looking older man with white hair observes the blacksmith. The young man stops his work and approaches the elder, offering him a small tray. He stands respectfully before the seated figure, who watches him with a sharp gaze. The young man politely thanks the elder for waiting, presenting the acupuncture needles he ordered. He is introduced as Tang Mujin, a 20-year-old physician, looking earnest and a bit nervous. There is a sound that can awaken a dreaming boy, turning him into a true hero. The elder picks up one of the fine needles, his expression serious as he inspects its quality. He asks Mujin if he is truly a physician, and the young man respectfully confirms it. Without warning, the old man makes a surprising demand, telling Mujin to become his disciple. The young physician is completely stunned by the unexpected offer, his face frozen. In disbelief, he can only manage a confused sound, unable to process the sudden turn of events. The scene transitions with a butterfly, marking the beginning of that fateful day. Overlooking the city, the narration says Mujin heard the sound that would change his life. The story then flashes back a few months to show his life before this moment. A physician's day begins. Early copying medical scrolls until the rooster crows at dawn. His daily routine includes various chores like organizing medicine and sweeping the courtyard. He also meticulously cleans and prepares his set of fine acupuncture needles. Someone calls him for breakfast while he and other disciples practice locating pressure points. The flashback shows his quiet, repetitive life. An old physician asks a young patient if an acupuncture needle hurts, and the boy happily says it doesn't. The doctor, who is Muji's father, smiles and offers the child a treat for being so brave during the treatment. Watching from afar, Mujin reflects that this quiet focus is what built his father's legendary skills over the years. He truly admires his father's technique, thinking it is as gentle as a butterfly landing on a person's skin. He wonders if he will ever be able to reach that level of skill, then calls out to his father to get his attention. The young physician says he will be back with more herbs, and then leaves the clinic. Running off into the town, he dashes across a bridge, making his way through the busy streets of the city. On his errand, he stops to greet a medicine vendor who confirms that he has what the young physician needs. Along the way, a local butcher cheerfully offers Mujin some meat as a gift. He continues through the marketplace, waving back at the friendly townspeople who call out his name. As he waves, he fails to notice a group of stern-looking warriors walking straight towards him. He suddenly collides with one of the figures, the impact stopping him abruptly in the middle of the street. Looking up in surprise, he wonders what is standing in the middle of the road, blocking his path. A large, intimidating man with glowing eyes glares down at him, angrily asking if he is walking with his eyes closed. Mujin immediately becomes nervous and quickly apologizes. Admitting that the mistake was his fault, the man grins menacingly, suggesting that someone might need to teach the young man a lesson for his carelessness. Despite the beating that follows, Mujin narrates that sometimes he still holds on to his dream of becoming a hero. The scene then shifts to a quiet, secluded hut nestled among the trees in a peaceful forest clearing. Hugin sits with a bruised eye and a puffy cheek, looking thoroughly annoyed by the whole situation. His friend, a herb gatherer named John Guak, finds it hilarious and teases him about getting beaten up. John Guak mockingly reenacts the scene, imitating both the bully's threat and a plea for forgiveness. He continues his joke, asking if Mujin wants another black eye so he can look like a panda for a day. Having had enough, Mujin suddenly jabs his friend in the eye with 2 fingers, silencing him instantly. As John Guak cries out in pain, Mujin yells that he already told him to stop the teasing. Later, both boys sit exhausted and bruised from their scuffle, trying to catch their breath after the fight. His friend asks if he's hungry, and Mujin confirms he is agreeing, when asked if he wants something good to eat. At that moment, John Guak reveals a strange-looking red mushroom covered in glowing butterfly patterns. He offers the peculiar fungus to his friend, but Mujin just looks at it with a confused expression. Mujin gets angry, thinking he is still being teased, but John Guak insists the mushroom is very valuable. The herb gatherer explains that it is a special mushroom that allows whoever eats it to have special dreams. John Guakin confirms, taking a bite to demonstrate, saying this mushroom allows for incredible experiences. He claims it can let a person dream of being a king, or even an ascended sage, before shoving a piece into his friend's mouth. This gets Muji's attention, especially when his friend boasts that last time he dreamed of being a pinnacle-level martial artist. The herb gatherer adds that the sensations in the dream felt completely real, and the mushroom's poison is harmless. Convinced, Mujin eagerly grabs the rest of the mushroom and swallows it, all in one large gulp. His friend panics, shouting that he wasn't supposed to eat the whole thing at once. As Maichin starts to feel the effects, John Guok explains that a single bite is enough to experience the dream of a pinnacle martial artist. Mujin begins to hallucinate, seeing himself as a master of swords, believing he and his blade are one. He laughs, manically convinced he will become the greatest swordmaster while his friend calls him an idiot. He dismisses his friend's concerns, saying he is not responsible if anything bad happens. The young physician boasts that as a doctor he can identify things just by looking at them, which John Guok doubts. His friend says the effects should hit soon, so they should. But wait and see what happens next. Suddenly Mugin's expression becomes dazed and he starts drooling, giving a thumbs up to his friend. John. Greg stares in horror as his friend's strange behavior intensifies, clearly not what he expected. Mujin's vision starts to blur and distort, the world around him shifting as the mushroom's potent effects take hold. In his dream, Mujin finds himself in a fiery landscape, a mountain of discarded weapons forged under intense heat. A powerful figure stands amidst the flames, holding a glowing tablet as a storm of energy deflects incoming blades. The man's hand firmly grips a massive hammer, its head engraved with ancient characters ready to shape destiny. Itself. Now a master blacksmith, he hammers a glowing ingot, feeling the embers on his skin like butterflies as sparks fly. He identifies himself as Tang Mujin, a lifelong blacksmith, expressing how this moment of creation never fails to amaze him. But then a flicker of confusion crosses his face, as if a foreign thought was suddenly intruded on his mind. He questions the name Tang Mujin, declaring that his true name is Yu Yazi, the unparalleled master of smithing. Snapping back to reality, he strikes the hot metal once more, trying to shake off the strange feeling. He wonders if he dazed off, dismissing the bizarre dream of being a physician as a sign of exhaustion from his work holding the glowing blade. He resolves to get himself together and refocus on the monumental task before him. He declares that he will craft the 5 legendary master swords that were requested by the king of the UAS. The legendary craftsman proclaims that these swords will be the greatest work of his life, and he will pour his soul into them. With a mighty roar, he calls out his name, O Yazi, as a volcano erupts behind him, channeling its power into his forge. In the cosmos of his dream, the first sword, Jin Lu, materializes among the suns and moons, a blade of legend. Then another masterpiece appears, the intricately designed sword known as Duki Forged. Some dreams in starlight. The vision continues, revealing the final 3 swords, the mighty Shanxi, the swift Yu Chong, and the noble Chun Jin. Together they form the 5 master swords, legendary weapons forged by both heaven and man over 2 long decades. In his dream, the blacksmith transcends mortality, becoming a sage surrounded by celestial beings who praise his glorious creations. He looks up with a fulfilled smile, having accomplished the dreams of mankind and the orders of the heavens themselves. A grand celebration begins with heavenly peach wine being poured to greet the new immortal who has ascended. As he walks through paradise, a voice declares it a grand day for Oyazi, celebrating his achievement. All of heaven raises a toast to him, honoring the day the master blacksmith finally reached paradise. The idyllic dream is filled with the sight of delicate pink blossoms floating gently through the celestial air. But the perfect moment is broken when a celestial maiden stumbles, accidentally knocking over a golden pitcher. The heavenly wine spills from the sky, splashing directly down onto the newly ascended immortal's face. The dream shatters and Mujin is back in reality, collapsed on the ground while an angry man yells in disbelief. He lies there dazed and confused, his eyes wide as he slowly comes back to his senses. Still reeling from the vision, the sign of the Tang family clinic is shown, where the incident has clearly caused a huge problem. An official storms out, furious that he trusted a recommendation for a novice who can't even perform acupuncture properly. He vows to have the young physician forced into retirement before stomping away in a rage, leaving chaos behind him. Mujin watches the fuming official walk away, clutching his head in confusion and distress over what just happened. His friend John Guok is furious, complaining about the arrogance of government officials like the man who just left. The young physician, still disoriented, asks what happened, saying his head hurts immensely and his memory is a blur. John Guok points to the sky, telling him to look at the setting sun, revealing that a lot of time has passed. He explains that Mujin was hallucinating and talking nonsense, then suddenly dragged him back to the clinic. With the explanation over, John Guok starts to leave, saying that at least the whole chaotic incident is over now. He warns his friend not to tell his father about the mushroom, and Mujin nervously agrees, thanking him for his help. As the herb gatherer walks away, thinking his friend is an idiot, Mujin just waves goodbye, still looking dazed. Now alone, Mujin grabs his throbbing head, trying to make sense of the situation and the lingering headache. He looks at the Tang family sign on the building, wondering if the vivid experience he had was really just a dream. He then enters the clinic, announcing his return as he sees his father holding an acupuncture needle with a drop of blood on it. The young man approaches, apologizing for being late and explaining that he has returned with the herbs he was sent for. As he gets closer, he calls out to his father, Noticing the somber and heavy atmosphere in the courtyard, the old physician finally turns to look at his son, welcoming him. Back with a very tired and weary expression, Mujin begins to ask about the angry official who left, but a sudden intense energy flares up around him. He stares at the acupuncture needle, which seems to pulse with an invisible prosdance energy. Suddenly, the memories from his dream flood his mind, causing an overwhelming and agonizing headache. The pain is intense, as if his very mind is trembling. Mixed with a deep and unfamiliar feeling of frustration, his father asks what is wrong, but the young man nervously dismisses it, trying to hide his strange condition. The old physician explains that the new needles were too painful for the official, but Mujin is sure they were fine. To show him, his father holds up one of the new needles, next to a bent one from his old set for comparison. As Mujin looks at them, he starts to hear a strange faint sound that seems to be coming from the needles themselves. He is certain he did not hear that sound in the morning, which only adds to his father's confusion. The frustration builds inside him, and his father, seeing his chills, mistakenly believes he has just caught a cold. As the old physician offers to brew some medicine, Mujin's hands move on their own, grabbing the bent needle with a sudden clink. He effortlessly straightens the bent metal, restoring it to a perfect, usable state. He hands the flawless needle back to his father, not realizing this is the moment his true potential awakens. The old physician stares at the perfectly restored needle, his eyes wide with utter disbelief at the impossible feat. His eyes gleam as he mocks the object, questioning its inferior quality. This new persona feels an intense irritation, finding the sight of such poorly made items completely unbearable. He now sees the difference between a straight needle and a bent one, with one resonating perfection and the other imperfection. Walking through the crowded Saint, the young physician clenches his fists, realizing that just yesterday he couldn't even tell if something was poorly made. He understands this is all because of a strange new power that suddenly appeared, causing the world to vibrate with new information. As he looks around, everything from incense burners to a vendor's stall seems to emit a flawed, irritating aura. The constant sensory input becomes overwhelming, and he clutches his head as a sharp pain shoots through him. His face contorts in frustration, because he can't stop being annoyed by how shoddy everything around him feels. But then his thoughts shift back to the bent needle he fixed, which now seems to glow with a pleasant, invigorating energy. Looking at it brought an exhilarating feeling, reminding him of a master blacksmith's pride in his work. The young man knows with certainty that this needle is the pride of Sichuan, a masterpiece forged by the great master blacksmith. Sulk. Yet a wave of confusion hits him, as he wonders how he knows this, since the new needles were supposed to be from the same master. He sweats nervously, unable to understand why the two sets of needles are so vastly different in quality. Hoping that nothing serious is wrong, he clenches his fists and runs off to find answers to his growing concerns. His destination is a large building with a sign identifying it as the town's metallurgy workshop, with smoke billowing from its chimney. The forge is a sprawling compound where the city's metal goods and weapons are created by skilled craftsmen. Inside, rows of magnificent swords are on display, each one sparkling with the undeniable mark of quality and skill. He feels an instant connection to the craftsmanship, his eyes widening in pure admiration as he exclaims that this is it. A young man hugs the sword's hilt, saying its resplendent finish makes all his previous irritation vanish instantly. He declares there is no way Master Seok's skills could ever decline, not noticing a woman nearby looking at him strangely. But then he pauses, holding the sword up to inspect it more closely. As a sudden thought crosses his mind, he wonders if dreaming of the master, artisan Oyazi, has somehow given him the ability to discern another craftsman's skill. The young physician realizes there is even more to this strange new power than he first thought, his eyes glinting. Memories from his dream show the legendary blacksmith selecting the finest ore and then beginning his work at the forge. The vision shows the master pouring all his energy into shaping the metal surrounded by intense heat and sparks. He understands that with a single glance he can now perceive Master Blacksmith Seok's entire metallurgy process. He clutches the sword, questioning if he truly gained an expert eye he never had before just because of a dream. A determined look crosses his face as he tries to process the impossible and confusing situation he finds himself in. He tells himself that no matter how vivid a dream is just a dream, and learning a blacksmith's trade from it is absurd. But if it were true, he thinks with a grimace, then his friend John Guok would be a master of the highest level. Deciding he must confirm it, he runs off, determined to find Master Seok and discover what has happened to him. Suddenly, a massive shout echoes from the direction of the workshop, stopping him in his tracks just outside. Inside, an angry blacksmith confronts him, questioning why he is not satisfied with the new acupuncture needles. The man introduces himself as Seok Ji-sung, the master's son, and fumes that he will not be treated like an amateur. After 20 years of work, McCronan tries to explain that he didn't mean to imply the smith was unskilled, but the man just turns away, still annoyed. Soaked. Drengsoeng then reveals that his father, the master blacksmith, has retired. A piece of news that makes Mujin realize what a disaster this is. The young physician now understands why few weapons in the shop felt right, concluding that the new needles were made by the son. He sighs in frustration, his mind racing as he tries to process this new and complicated information. The smith admits he is far from his father's level, but is insulted that a physician's son is looking down on him. He challenges Mujin to use his supposed skill to find one of the master's original works. Among the many weapons in the workshop, the craftsman points to a rack of swords, demanding that the young man show him exactly what his own work is lacking. He scoffs, privately convinced that the physician's son will not be able to tell the difference between their crafts. However, Mujin immediately finds and holds up a set of blades, leaving the blacksmith completely stunned by his speed. That accuracy. The smith stares in disbelief, wondering how he found his father's work so fast, and if their skill difference is truly that vast. He admits that most people overlook those pieces due to their simple design, then awkwardly praises Mujin for his remarkable eye. Mujin smirks, glad the man admitted it. This experience confirms his belief that what he experienced was no ordinary dream. The blacksmith explains he just thought Mujin was a troublesome customer, but now he understands his dissatisfaction. The smith admits he was only half joking, amazed that the young man picked out all of his father's remaining works. He concedes that Mujin's eye for quality is better than his own, and his own work pales in comparison to such discernment. The craftsman feels that at best he can only produce something slightly less clumsy. Much to the young physician's surprise, convinced there is only one solution, the blacksmith picks up a large hammer. His expression resolved, he then pushes the heavy tool into Muji's hands, declaring that the young man must forge the needles. Himself, the youth is completely stunned by the unexpected proposal, unable to believe what he is being asked to do. The smith says if he thinks it is impossible, he will try again with more care. But under the youth's guidance, Mujin considers the rare opportunity. Wondering how many chances a person gets to play the part of a blacksmith, he agrees to the challenge, taking off his outer robe and telling the craftsmen they should begin right away. The first step of the process is to gather the necessary raw materials for the forge, including ore and wood. The blacksmith tells him to start with simple practice, and Mujin begins fanning the flames to heat up the furnace. As the forge heats up, he starts to feel a sense of doubt, wondering if he can really do this based only on a dream. He thinks the situation is absurd, like asking a patient to insert their own needles and decoct their own medicine. Despite his hesitation, an instinct takes over, and he brings the hammer down hard on the glowing piece of metal. A powerful and undeniable urge to swing the hammer fills him, as he works while the smith watches on with a serious expression. The blacksmith watches with wide eyes, completely stunned by the sight before him. The young physician works with a focused and steady rhythm, his movements fluid and precise. At the forge, each strike of the hammer lands with perfect force, shaping the glowing metal with an expert's touch. A bead of sweat drips down his face as he smiles, realizing that the knowledge from his dream is actually working. The smith is in utter disbelief, admitting to himself that he intended to mock the youth, but his hammering is flawless. He thinks Muji's technique is not that of a physician, but is as natural as his father, who has hammered steel his entire life. The sound of the hammer striking the metal is like a beautiful chime, resonating with a pure musical quality. The craftsman wonders if he is witnessing the reincarnation of the legendary master blacksmith, Hu Yezi. As he watches the flames dance around the young man, he questions if what he is seeing is the true realm of talent. He quickly realizes that this display of skill is something that transcends even the greatest natural talent. Under Mujin's hands, a blade of exceptional quality begins to take shape, glowing with a powerful aura. Now filled with excitement, the smith urges him to continue, wanting to see him strike, quench, and sharpen the blade. The blacksmith's eyes are completely captivated by the process, reflecting the fiery creation of the weapon. As Mujin holds up the finished sword, the smith eagerly asks to see how he will make the handle and the sheath as well. He throws back the blade, demanding that the young doctors show him the finished masterpiece that exists in his mind. But instead of presenting the finished work, he asks the blacksmith to melt the blade down, leaving the man completely speechless. The young physician explains that was just a warm-up. Now he is ready to forge the actual acupuncture needles. The workshop's chimney once again billows with intense smoke and fire, signaling that a true master is at work inside. Sometime later, a perfectly forged needle is finished, its tip gleaming with a brilliant and flawless light. The new needle pierces a patient's skin with such gentleness and precision that the entry is completely painless. Back at the clinic, the official who stormed out before is receiving treatment, while his companions ask if it hurts. To his own surprise, the man exclaims that his back pain is completely gone, leaving the other elders amazed by the swift recovery. The patient asks if the needle is even in, and the physician confirms it. Is the angry official now? Wonders if he was wrong that day. The news of the miraculous cures spreads quickly, and a huge crowd rush to the clinic, praising the physician's skills. Soon a massive line forms outside the Tang family clinic, stretching far across the bridge and into the city. Meanwhile, on a quiet outside of town, a mysterious figure in a wide-brimmed hat rests at a small pavilion. Two travelers carrying large packs walk up the path, chatting about their journey as they pass the stranger. One suggests the other should have visited the famous Tang clinic for his back pain, but his friend says he already tried. The traveler complains that the line was so long he couldn't even see the clinic's roof as the lone figure listens in. Hearing this, the mysterious man gets to his feet and begins walking down the path, heading towards the town. At the Tang family clinic, a voice announces they are open and asks the large crowd to form a line. The waiting patients begin to move forward in an orderly fashion, entering through the main gate of the compound. But suddenly, an angry man in the crowd starts yelling. Accusing someone of rudely cutting the line, the other patients turn to look at the source of the commotion, their faces filled with shock and fear. Majin steps out into the courtyard, wondering what is causing such a disturbance among the waiting people. He then sees the glint of a sharp blade as it is pressed threateningly against a man's throat. The mysterious stranger from the road has the loud man pinned to the ground. Holding him at sword point, he looks down at the terrified man with a smug and confident expression, clearly in control of the situation. Mujin watches in shock, realizing that he is witnessing a dangerous fight between two martial artists. The stranger says it is only proper to oblige the challenge, then swiftly swings his blade at the man on the ground. A spray of blood flies through the air, and the young physician can only watch in wide-eyed horror as the injured man cries out and collapses. Mojin rushes forward in a panic, trying to help him. He kneels beside the man, immediately pressing down on the deep wounds to try and stop the bleeding. But as he looks closer, he sees the stranger has not just cut the man, but has carved words into his skin. He is stunned to see the words were carved without harming bone or muscle, realizing this man is a master. As the stranger walks away, Mujin realizes he has heard the name Phantom Doctor somewhere before. The master warrior scoffs at the man on the ground for making such a fuss, which catches the young physician's attention. Says the man only fainted from a scratch and the wound will heal if treated properly with medicine. But he adds a threatening condition, saying that is only if he can find a proper physician to treat him. Suddenly Mujin remembers everything. The stranger is Yo Chong, the Phantom Doctor, also known as the Physician Slayer. A flashback begins showing his father. Mujin recalls how he always used to feel a sense of peace when looking at him. Even as a young boy, he would watch his father with deep admiration and a feeling of calm security. He reflects that his father may not have been the greatest or most famous physician in the entire land, but like a strong ancient tree, he was a steadfast and resolute physician who always held his ground. Watching his father's example was how he learned the true virtue of what it means to be a dedicated physician. In contrast, Ye Chung is a master of the highest level who roams the world. One of the three great physicians under heaven. He is known as a strange man who weighs the fates of others with both his sword and his healing arts. It is said there is no good or evil. In his judgment, as he pronounces life or death based on his whims, he acts without any clear moral compass, deciding the fates of others with his incredible and unpredictable power. On top of that, he is a notorious serial killer who has murdered dozens of innocent physicians across the Central Plains. His eyes widen in terror as he realizes that the dangerous man is heading straight for his father. He tries to run after the stranger, but is suddenly stopped by an unseen force. Crying out in frustration, the young physician sees the Physician Slayer heading directly towards his father's study, a place of peace and healing. He desperately screams his father's name, terrified of what the infamous killer might do to him. Suddenly, a man calls his name. Stopping him, he turns to see a sect instructor holding him back. The man, a head instructor named Jin Song, tells him that the situation was beyond their control. The youth desperately asks what he means, hoping the sect leader can stop the intruder, but the instructor remains silent. Jin Song explains that even their master will not stand and the Phantom Doctor's way, despite him being a villain. He then reveals that their master's life was just saved by the Phantom Doctor, leaving Mujin completely stunned by the news. He falls to his knees in the courtyard, defeated and unable to help as the head instructor watches over him. A hand gently rests on his shoulder, and he looks up to see his father standing beside him. Safe and sound, the old physician tells his son not to worry about the intruder's dangerous reputation. He explains that the Phantom Doctor he met was eccentric, but he was certainly not a villain. Inside the study, the Phantom Doctor releases a powerful burst of energy, shattering the calm atmosphere of the room. He stands there with a confident grin, ready to face the person he came all this way to meet. As the Phantom Doctor turns, Mujin and the instructor stare in shock, their eyes fixed on the hilt of his sword. The young physician then notices that the man's sleeves are perfectly clean, showing no signs of a fight. He breathed a huge sigh of relief, realizing his father was never in any danger from the strange visitor. But just as he calms down, the intimidating warrior suddenly grabs him by the front of his robes. The master leans in close, revealing that Physician Tang told him there was a skilled blacksmith in town. He asks if the young man knows of such a place, and Mujin nervously stammers that he does. The stranger then orders him to lead the way, dragging the youth along with him as he protests weakly. The hilt of the master sword bumps against Mujin's side, a constant reminder of the man's power. The young physician looks terrified, sweating as he is held in the warrior's unyielding grip. The Phantom Doctor asks impatiently if he is coming, reminding him with a menacing grin that he is a busy man. They finally arrived back at the metallurgy workshop where the forge's chimney is still billowing smoke inside. The master points to the new acupuncture needles, asking if it was Mujin, not the smith who made them. The young physician smiles and confirms that he did, while the blacksmith stands beside him, looking confused. The phantom doctor suddenly bursts into loud laughter, finding the entire situation completely absurd. He exclaims that the strangest things happen in Sichuan now that a physician's son is practicing metallurgy. Wiping a tear from his eye, he dismisses the absurdity and places an order for 30 needles from Tang Mujin. As payment, he offers a single gleaming piece of gold, which leaves both the youth and the blacksmith stunned. They both shout in unison. Completely shocked by the sight of the precious and valuable metal, Mojin bows deeply, enthusiastically, accepting the generous offer and promising to have the needles ready by sunset. The phantom doctor is taken aback by this bold claim, questioning how such a task could be completed so quickly. He clarifies that he means today, not months from now. Knowing that even renowned blacksmiths take several days for such work. Clutching the gold with a greedy grin, the young physician confidently repeats that he can do it today. The master is skeptical, thinking the youth is lying because he is blinded by the gold, but Mujin insists he can do it, and the blacksmith beside him nervously vouches for his incredible ability. The three of them stand in the workshop, the master watching with a mix of suspicion and curiosity. As the stranger waits, both the youth and the smith look up, their attention suddenly drawn to him. The phantom doctor clears his throat and then places his own finely crafted sword on the table between them. Mujin suddenly remembers the magnificent blade and curses himself for getting distracted by the gold. The master challenges him to try, a menacing grin on his face as he warns the boy that he had better be able to deliver. The young physician nervously agrees, and the forge's chimney once again begins to churn out thick black smoke. A massive explosion of fire and smoke erupts from the forge's chimney, signaling the start of the intense work inside the phantom. Doctor watches as the shirtless young physician works tirelessly at the anvil, assisted by the blacksmith. He knows the arduous process of making needles involves drawing and grinding hundreds of iron threads, selecting only the perfect ones. The master decides to see for himself if the power the young man possesses is something more than just sheer luck. He notes that for a physician, the youth's body is surprisingly well-trained and muscular from his work. His eyes widened in surprise as he observes the young physician's flawless and powerful technique. The intense work continues inside the metallurgy workshop, the sounds of the hammer echoing throughout the city. Mujin's hand grips the heavy hammer with a strength and confidence that seems entirely natural. To him, the phantom doctor is visibly shocked as he witnesses the raw power and precision behind each and every strike. The young physician brings the hammer down with incredible force, his body moving with the grace of a seasoned master. His focus is absolute, every movement perfect as he shapes the glowing hot metal on the anvil before him. The legendary warrior's eye reflects the scene, completely captivated by the unbelievable display of skill. Finally, the smoke from the chimney clears, and a voice apologizes to the master for the long wait. Mujin, sweating but triumphant, announces that the needles the man ordered are now finally ready. The phantom doctor looks up with a confused and surprised expression, not expecting the work to be done. So soon, he asks why the master is making such an offer, and the man replies that having a skilled blacksmith is convenient for him. The youth points out that this sounds more like a contract, but the master simply tells him to call it whatever he likes. The warrior then tests him, asking how he would treat a patient with a specific set of complex symptoms after Mojin gives the correct prescription. The master declares that he has passed the test and is now his disciple. He explains that anyone with the insight to have memorized classic medical texts is worthy of learning martial arts. The master adds that he will understand the importance of intelligence once he tries teaching someone who is not very bright. He says that fools just swing their swords aimlessly and end up as second-rate fighters, unable to recognize true quality. Hearing this, the young physician looks at the master, a serious and important question forming in his mind. He then asks the warrior if he believes he has what it takes to become a first-rate master under his guidance. The master explains that a student surpassing their teacher is a true measure of the master's own skill. Understanding the implication, Mujin clenches his fist, a new and powerful sense of determination filling him. He walks through the courtyard of his home, his mind now set on a path he never could have imagined before. His eyes shine with excitement as he thinks of the incredible possibility of reaching the pinnacle of mastery. Filled with a surge of energy, he clenches his fist and stomps his foot, ready to begin his new training. He leaps into the air, practicing his first martial arts moves with enthusiasm, eager for the journey ahead. He lands with a powerful punch, grinning as he enjoys his newfound physical abilities and training. His practice is cut short when his father appears. The young man bows respectfully and apologizes for being late. The old physician suddenly grabs his son's shoulders, his hands trembling with a powerful and visible emotion. Mujin becomes concerned, asking what is wrong as his father continues to shake, unable to form any words. The old man finally explains through tears that he was terrified. Something had happened to him with the phantom doctor. The youth reassures his father that everything is fine, saying the warrior was not as fearsome as the rumor suggested. His father is relieved, but asks why it took so long just to guide the man to the blacksmith's workshop. Mujin then reveals that the stranger asked him to be his disciple, giving him until the next evening. And aside, The young man comments that the master's title is not just for show, appearing out of nowhere with such an offer. As they walk together, his father suddenly stops in his tracks, causing Mujin to ask what is wrong. The old man stands silently at the doorway, not responding to his son's question about why he stopped walking without warning. The old physician collapses to the ground and Mujin rushes forward in a panic, calling his name. A crack splinters across the stone tiles from the impact, leaving the young man completely shocked and confused. As the old man's robes fall open, they reveal a large pile of sparkling silver ingots that he had been hiding. Mujin stares in confusion, wondering where his father could have gotten so much silver all of a sudden. His father looks at him with the setting sun in the background and calmly tells him that he should go. The young physician is completely confused, asking what he means since the clinic is already so short-handed these days. He tries to laugh it off, nervously suggesting that the man must have been joking because of his strange, but his father quickly cuts him off, insisting that being short-handed is not the real issue at hand. The old physician looks his son in the eye, telling him with great seriousness that the only time he can leave is now. The youth stares back, surprised by his father's sudden and uncharacteristic intensity and determination. He remembers always seeing his father as a steadfast ancient tree, a figure who always held his ground firmly. But his father's sudden words make him realize something new and profound about the man he has always known. The scene fills with golden butterflies, symbolizing a moment of deep and important realization for the young man, as the butterflies swarmed the ancient tree. He finally understands that his father, too, was once a boy with his own dreams. 2 days after beginning his martial arts training, the young man successfully achieved small circulation. For the first time, he feels a new sensation coursing through his entire body. As his internal energy grows stronger each day, he meditates, trying to find the right words to describe this unfamiliar feeling of power awakening within him. His eyes gleam with a newfound intensity, reflecting his deep concentration and the changes happening inside. He realizes it's more than just getting stronger. It feels like he is truly advancing on his path. A memory surfaces of his father telling him this was his only chance to leave, and he silently expresses his gratitude. An acorn suddenly falls on his head, startling him. A voice asks if he is homesick, but he quickly denies it. The voice belongs to an older man perched on a tree branch, who has been watching him with a knowing smile. As the master lands, the youth proudly notes that his internal energy feels stronger today, which the elder finds interesting. The young man boasts that he must have talent, but his master dismisses it, saying his progress is merely average. He protests, arguing that mastering small circulation in 2 days when it takes others 10 clearly shows his talent. A moment later, a heavy sword is thrust into his hands, leaving him completely confused by the sudden turn of events. His master challenges him to swing at once, promising to carry him to Sichuan if he can even cut a piece of his clothing. The youth asks nervously if the offer is real, his shocked expression reflected on the polished blade. He panics upon realizing it's a real sharp sword, worried that a single mistake to be fatal. He nervously reasons that after 10 days of progress, perhaps a surprise attack is his best and only option. He launches a swift attack, swinging the heavy sword while his master stands completely unguarded and seemingly unaware. The master remarks on his student's progress, wondering if he truly gained talent and momentum as energy flows around his feet with a determined shout. The young warrior puts all his strength into the swing, hoping to catch his teacher by surprise. He brings the sword down with full force, but the elder effortlessly blocks the powerful strike with a simple wooden stick. The disciple is stunned that his blade didn't even scratch the stick, questioning how it could be stronger than iron. His master then gives him a strange warning, telling him to bite down hard on his molars, leaving the youth confused. A sinister grin spreads across the elder's face as he channels a massive surge of purple energy through the stick. The young man feels a powerful wave of energy traveling up the blade and coursing through his entire body. He struggles against the overwhelming current, his eyes wide with shock as the sheer force begins to push him back. The blast of energy becomes too much, sending him flying backward as the heavy sword is ripped from his grasp. A small puff of smoke marks his rough landing in the middle of the grassy field, far from where he started. Dazed, he gets on his hands and knees, staring at a puddle that has mysteriously formed on the ground before him. The master calmly approaches and asks how it felt to experience internal energy, but the youth remains speechless. On the ground, he finally shouts in frustration, confused as to why having more internal energy doesn't automatically mean being stronger. The master explains that he also lacks great internal energy, which is why he avoids fights based on raw power, as martial arts is far more complex. The youth reminds the elder of his promise to make him a peak master, worried that starting late makes it impossible if quantity is all that matters. The elder reassures him that there are many paths to mastery, pointing out that the boy tried to resist his energy but instinctively withdrew. Telling that a good path, he tells his student to attack again, promising not to use any internal energy this time. The two of them face off in the clearing once more, preparing for the second round of their unconventional training. With a look of intense concentration, the young warrior readies his stance. Determined to succeed in his next strike, he leaps forward with a powerful shout. bringing his sword down in a swift and decisive arc toward his teacher. Although the master blocks the attack with his stick again, the force of the blow manages to chip the wood slightly. The elder then leaps high into the air, and the youth looks up in shock. Feeling a sudden sharp pressure on his forehead, he is knocked to the ground yet again, utterly defeated by his masters. Superior technique and speed. The master calmly states that even without internal energy, he could have defeated the boy 3 times, who lies on the ground dazed, crouching beside his student. The teacher points out that his speed of accumulating internal energy is not particularly fast. He adds that the youth also lacks a special constitution for handling large amounts of energy at once, tapping his head with the stick. However, the master also highlights his student's strengths, including his good energy sense and his fast and accurate internal force manipulation. Later, as they walk through the forest, the elder explains that even aimless wandering can become a path to growth. The master smiles, impressed with his student's progress and stating that for just 10 days of training it's excellent. The disciple gets excited, wondering if he's a genius, but the master regrets his praise and gives him a light tap with the stick. A sudden rustling sound from the nearby forest interrupts them, and they both turn their heads to see what caused it. The youth spots a silhouette in the distance initially, mistaking it for a wild beast before realizing it's a person walking on 2 legs. A young man with spiky blue hair emerges from the trees, looking relieved as he spots them. The master notices the 3 knots on the stranger's belt and identifies him as a branch master, which shocks his disciple. The man introduces himself as Hongju-san, a branch master from Joyal Village, explaining he was looking for a physician due to recent deaths. The elder wonders how he got lost, but Jason admits he's never left his village, and it's a good thing they didn't catch the strange disease as they walk together. Jason explains that a month ago, villagers fell ill with what they thought was just a spring cough, but the sickness spread, rapidly infecting over half the village and causing 20 deaths, forcing them to burn the bodies. He confesses that he considered fleeing with the other villagers, but couldn't bring himself to abandon his home. He chose to stay and help the patients with his master, feeling a deep connection to the people he grew up with. They worked with the village physician, but when medicine ran out, the physician went to the mountains for herbs and never returned. Jason expresses his deep gratitude to the Time for not only helping, but also for showing him the way back home. They finally arrive at a vantage point overlooking the village below, and Jason announces that they are almost there. An elderly man, the guardian of Jewel Village, greets them at the entrance and ushers from inside to see the patients in a dimly lit room. They find a young boy lying on a cot, his body covered in red sores and glistening with sweat. The disciple reaches out to examine the sick child, his hand hovering over the boy's feverish skin. After checking the pulse, he senses an imbalance of fire and water energies, noting the excessive sweating and rapid heartbeat. He observes that the boy's ears are hot, but his hands are cold, confirming that a dangerous amount of heat is rising to his head. He turns to his master and reports his diagnosis, identifying it as an epidemic-type condition with several concerning symptoms. When asked for a specific name, the disciple explains that it's similar to summer heat fire poison, but is missing the characteristic sour smell. He warns that without treatment the boy could suffer blindness or permanent brain damage and proposes a plan of acupuncture and herbal medicine. The elder praises his student's knowledge and then orders him to perform the acupuncture himself, causing the young man to freeze and panic. He nervously takes out a thin, sharp needle, his hand trembling slightly as he prepares for his first real procedure. He locates what he believes is the correct acupuncture point on the patient's foot, hesitating as he worries about making a mistake. Before he can proceed, his master's hand appears, gently correcting his aim and pointing to the precise spot. The master's hand glows with a faint blue aura as he reveals that energy circulation is a vital skill. For a physician, as their energies connect through the patient, the disciple's senses are greatly amplified, creating a link between them. He feels his master's power guiding his own, allowing him to see into the boy's body and discover a dark, evil energy festering inside. His master confirms that he sensed the evil energy and instructs him to use acupuncture. Test its reaction. As the villagers watch with concern, the young physician carefully inserts the needle into the patient's foot. He channels his internal energy, which surrounds him in a blue aura, concentrating on treating the unconscious boy. The procedure leaves him exhausted, and he wipes sweat from his brow. While the others look on, waiting for a result, he stays, focused sweat dripping down his face as he carefully monitors the boy for any changes in his condition inside the patient. The dark red energy swirls violently near his eye, reacting aggressively to the treatment. The disciple's eyes widen as he feels the intense struggle within the boy's body, and he takes a sharp breath. After a few tense moments, the boy's condition seems to stabilize with the acupuncture needle still in place. The young man finally lets out a huge sigh of relief, steam visibly leaving his mouth as the tension breaks. His master places a firm, reassuring hand on his shoulder, acknowledging his student's successful effort. The youth looks up at his teacher, his expression a mixture of exhaustion and gratitude for the guidance. The elder smiles proudly, remarking that it has been a day filled with valuable learning experiences for his student. He adds that seeing his determined face, he now looks like a true physician, having passed a critical test. Later that night, A mysterious figure stands on a cliff overlooking the village. Shrouded in a strange glowing mist the next day, a villager tells them that the missing Dr. Yom was a good man who used all his savings to buy herbs for the sick. The villager adds that the town was so moved by the doctor's generosity that they pooled their own money to pay for the herbs when they arrived. He then apologizes for rambling, explaining his worry for his sick done, and shows them to an empty house where they can rest. The master and his students step inside the modest home, and a small doll lying on the wooden floor immediately catches the elder's eye. The doll lies abandoned, a silent reminder of the child who once played there before the plague swept through the village. A shadow of sadness crosses the master's face as he looks at the forgotten joy. His thoughts turning inward, the young physician praises Dr. Yami's kindness, and his master, momentarily distracted, confirms he was talking about the village doctor. His student then wonders why such a generous village was struck by a plague. Pointing to the food and gifts left for them, the master tells him to eat only what's needed and return the rest, saying they shouldn't add to the villagers' burden. As they sit down to eat, the youth asks about the plague, and the elder admits that it feels like a disease he's never seen before. The student is shocked that a great physician wouldn't know, but his master explains that for everything one learns, 5 new unknowns appear. He pours a drink, adding that he wouldn't be wandering the world. There was nothing left for him to learn. Curious, the young man asks if there was a specific disease his master always wanted to find a cure for. Looking at the small doll on a nearby table, the elder quietly admits that there was one, but he was too late to cure it. The youth looks at him, confused by the cryptic and sorrowful response, repeating the words "too late." Under his breath, he holds his cup, his expression filled with questions as a heavy silence settles between them, in the fading light. Their quiet conversation is suddenly interrupted by a funeral cry from outside, and they both turn to look out the window. The sorrowful sound echoes across the valley, a grim reminder of the plague's relentless hold on the small mountain village. A young physician gazes out, thinking that medicine is useless without first understanding the nature of the illness. He looks at the image of the sick boy in his mind, wishing he had the knowledge to have cured all the victims. His master then begins to share a personal story, revealing that his own wife and daughter died from a similar sickness years ago in a flashback. He recalls how they both developed a high fever and red spots, forcing him to seek help from a doctor. Despite consulting even a famous physician, no one knew the cure, and his family passed away within 4 days. The youth offers his condolences for the terrible loss, but the master calmly states that it's not a gloomy story. He takes a sip from his, adding that the second half of his tale is actually so ironic it's almost laughable. After their deaths, he suffered for a long time before leaving his hometown. On impulse, as if bewitched by his grief, he walked away from his old life, leaving behind a small doll and the red cloth from his wedding day. He wandered aimlessly for 10 days. On what should have been a 1-day journey, eventually arriving at another small village. There he found a small clinic, its presence marked by a simple paper lantern hanging from a wooden post. He remembers the country doctor, a man with a mousy face who inspired no trust, but he described the symptoms anyway. The doctor listened, and then to his surprise, simply asked for 5 yang and offered a medicine that he guaranteed would work. He says that with the money he had back then, he could have paid for his daughter's wedding multiple times. His family didn't die because of poverty or incompetence, but simply because one doctor knew what another did not. He smiles with a hint of sorrow, explaining that this experience is the very reason he chose to become a physician himself. He admits that after 30 years, he can barely remember his family's faces. Letting out a hollow laugh as they look out the window, the young man realizes that the same funeral cries they heard earlier are still echoing through the village. He notes that there was a deep sadness in his master's laughter, a sound that felt more like a wail. Morning. The next morning, the disciple decides to search for the source of the illness, and his master agrees to join him. Soon, he confidently reassures his teacher that he won't be slacking off as he walks away with the villagers. His investigation begins at a pig pen, where a large, seemingly healthy pig looks up at him. With curious eyes, he observes the animals. It finds nothing unusual as the villagers stand behind him, watching his every move. Next, he peers down into the village well, searching for any sign of contamination or strange energy, but again finds nothing. He turns to the villagers and asks if the house they are approaching is indeed the first one to be affected by the sickness. They confirm that it is, and he stands before the 2-story wooden building, contemplating his next move. He recalls the basic principles of plagues. A cold plague chills the body, while a hot plague causes it to burn. Regardless of the symptoms, these illnesses are always caused by evil Mage born in dark, damp places. But he senses nothing of the sort. He knows that epidemics should spread outward in a circle, but the pattern of infection in this village doesn't fit that model. He asks the villagers if the disease spread to neighbors in a specific order after the first case, and they hesitate before answering. They explain that the west side of the village was affected before the east, and children got sick before the adults. This information confuses him further as the clues don't seem to fit together, prompting him to ask what's different about the 2 sides. A villager recalls that the east is said to have more yang energy, but the physician dismisses this as they saw no plague signs on the west side. The The conversation then shifts to the children, and a villager suggests that their main play spot on the west side might be the key. The disciple immediately suspects the creek water, but then remembers seeing a well on the east side that wasn't murky. He asks the village elder if the east well is always dry, and the old man explains that it only happens during spring droughts. A sudden realization strikes the young physician, and he asks if the epidemic started around the same time the well dried up. He connects the dots. If the east well was dry, everyone would have started using the creek water, explaining the outbreak pattern. They all head to the creek, and the disciple kneels down to examine the clear flowing water, a gentle ripple on its surface. He observes that the water doesn't look or smell strange, but all the evidence now points to it as the source. He decides that there's only one way to be certain, and prepares to examine the water more closely. He drinks a small amount of the water, and a strange sensation immediately spreads through his body. He sits down in a meditative posture, preparing to circulate his internal energy to analyze the water's effect on his system. As he meditates, he visualizes his own internal organs focusing on the flow of energy and the effects of the water. He traces the path of the water as it enters his stomach, sensing a subtle but dangerous change in its composition. He is shocked to discover the same evil energy he found in the sick boy now present within his own body. He quickly stands up, startling the two villagers who are watching him with a mix of curiosity and concern. He excitedly points up the creek, announcing that he's found a clue and urging the others to follow him. The small group begins to walk upstream, following the winding path of the creek as it flows through the forest. They navigate the rocky terrain along the water's edge, helping each other across the more treacherous parts of the path. Suddenly, the young physician stops, a strange sensation washing over him as he looks ahead with wide eyes. He asks the others if they smell something unusual, and they confirmed that a strange odor has been growing stronger. They continue onward, the air growing thick with the foul smell as they get closer to the source of the contamination. As they walk, they notice that their shoes are sinking into the ground, which has become soft and muddy. The disciple covers his nose, overwhelmed by the stench, and observes that all the nearby trees are dead and withered. They cautiously approach a clearing ahead, where the source of the smell seems to be originating from. A wave of dark purple energy washes over the area, and the young man shields himself from the malevolent force. He looks down in horror, realizing that the very soil beneath their feet is rotting and decaying. The ground beneath them shifts and writhes, and the disciple stumbles back in shock. As he feels a powerful presence, he takes a ready stance, sensing that something is buried just beneath the corrupted soil. With a look of grim determination, he realizes that he must uncover whatever is hidden in this foul place. His mind flashes back to a time when he worked in an herb storage, a place that also held the remains of plants and animals. Despite the presence of death in the form of dried herbs, the storage room always had a comforting medicinal smell. He had grown to like that particular scent, a fragrance that represented the potential for healing and life. He stands in the memory of the herb room surrounded by pouches of medicine hanging from the ceiling. To him it was the smell of death that held the key to life's ascent, that promised recovery and hope. Snapping back to the present, he grabs a sturdy branch and begins to dig into the rotting earth. With fierce determination, he uncovers a horrifying sight, the remains of countless animals. Their bones scattered in the corrupted soil, the group works together, digging up the animal carcasses from several pits near the edge of the creek. He instructs the others to help him move the remains away from the water to prevent further contamination. Jusen discovers a large animal leg that has been deliberately chopped off and buried. Pointing it out to the elder, they realize they are dealing with a potent corpse. Poison so strong that even slight exposure causes severe illness. Unlike natural poisons, this one doesn't bring instant death, but instead corrupts the land and spreads a slow, agonizing plague. The culprit knew exactly how corpse poison worked, using its slow-acting nature to create a devastating plague by timing the contamination with the drying of the well. Their goal was clearly the complete annihilation of the village. The disciple stands horrified, realizing the sheer evil of the plan, as the two villagers behind him begin to show signs of sickness. A sudden crack of a twig snaps him out of his shock, and he turns to see who is approaching. A large masked figure appears, carrying a basket on his back and holding a bloody sack and a sharp knife. The man angrily demands to know what they are doing to the field he worked so hard to prepare. The villagers are stunned, recognizing the man as Physician Yang, the supposedly kind doctor who had disappeared. The young physician puts the pieces together. Yame knew about corpse poison and used the outbreak to collect money. He realizes that the smiling physician was a demon in human skin, the true culprit behind the entire tragedy. He is disgusted that Yame's greed was so vast that he was willing to sacrifice an entire village for his own gain. A monstrous image of a pig devouring the village flashes in his mind, symbolizing the doctor's insatiable avarice. Physician Yame stands defiantly, his hand resting on his knife as he glares at the group that has uncovered his dark secret. Filled with righteous fury, the young man vows to kill the man for his shameless and evil deeds. He readies his staff, but before he can act, a hand grabs his shoulder and he turns to see the village elder. The elder, now enraged, lifts a rotting goat's head and accuses physician Shame of creating the disease and pretending to treat people. Unfazed, Physician Yame calmly looks up at the goat head being brandished in his face. He smirks, admitting that he's been nice all along and only wanted to collect his rightful share in the end. The elder roars in fury, questioning how he could call it a share after so many people have died because of his. He swings the heavy goat skull down with all his might, aiming to crush the corrupt physician. However, the goat skull shatters into pieces just before it hits its target, stopped by an unseen force. The evil physician stands unharmed, having effortlessly dodged the attack. Much to the elder's surprise, two more masked figures suddenly appear, armed and ready to fight. As Yao mockingly asks why he should care about the dead, he glares at the group, stating that all he cares about is that they've ruined his hard work. He declares that they will now pay the price with their lives. Tossing the remains of the goat head aside with a crazed look in his eyes, he reveals that he was planning to throw their bodies into the poison pit anyway. The three men ready their makeshift weapons, preparing to defend themselves against the physician and his henchmen. The village elder trembles with rage, his eyes hidden in shadow as he grips his club tightly. He lets out a furious shout and stomps his foot on the ground, kicking up a cloud of dust. Physician Yolome notices the 3 knots on the elder's belt, a sign that he is a branch master of the Beggars sect. The elder unleashes his full power, roaring that he is a guardian from the Beggars sect, ready to deliver justice. Physician Yolome is shocked, realizing he has severely underestimated his opponent. The elder stands ready to fight, facing off against Yeonam and his 2 henchmen, while the young physician and Jusun stand back. Ohm's accomplices panic, complaining that they were told they would only be facing weaklings, not a guardian of the Beggars sect. The powerful energy radiating from the elder forces the 3 villains to take a step back. Sensing the danger, the guardian grips his club and gives the henchmen an ultimatum, saying he will count to 10 for them to make a choice. He declares that the only one who needs to die is Physician Yolome, and he doesn't wish to cause any more deaths in the village. He swings his club ready for battle and urges the 2 men to make the right choice and abandon their corrupt master. As the elder begins his countdown, the young physician looks on in awe at the immense power he is witnessing. He is stunned that the old man was able to intimidate his opponents with just a shout. Recognizing his true strength, Jason suddenly turns to the disciple, his face grim, and tells him that he must run away immediately. The young man is shocked by the sudden request, questioning why he would need to flee the scene. Josen explains his plan. He will throw the physician over the stream, and he must run as fast as he can to warn the village. He instructs him not to look back as the elder continues his countdown, the tension rising with each passing second. The disciple argues that as Pinnacle Realm martial artists, they should be able to handle the situation easily. He glances back, confused, as the elder reaches the count of 3, not understanding the true gravity of the danger they are in. He realizes with a shock that Jusen and the elder are not Pinnacle Realm masters, as their power levels don't match his expectations. Jusen calmly explains that regardless of their strength, he and his master have no choice but to fight for their home physician. Yoham tries to rally his men, reminding them that they are only facing 2 beggars and 1 physician. The elder's countdown continues, his voice booming as he shouts the number 4, his patience wearing thin. The young physician understands that Jusen intends to die fighting, and he wonders why a seemingly weak beggar would go to such lengths. He suggests that they all run together, believing that if they can reach his master, they will all be safe, but Jusen grabs him, preventing him from rushing into the fight. As the countdown reaches 5, he explains that they don't have the skills to protect him while escaping, and their only option is for him to run alone. He begs the young physician to protect the village alongside his master, entrusting him with their last hope. He speaks of their lives as beggars, saying they have never felt shame because the villagers' generosity has always sustained them. As the elder reaches the count of 6, Josen recalls his master's words, a promise to fight for the villagers when the time comes. He looks out over the village, a place that has been his home and his reason for living, ready to make the ultimate sacrifice. The countdown reaches 7, and John's henchmen, spurred by their gambling debts, decide to take their chances and attack. They charge forward with a battle cry, knowing that they only live once and that this is their only way out. Physician Yoham grins, seeing that his men have chosen to fight, and prepares to join the fray with a firm grip. Jusen shoves the young physician back, urging him to leave the fight. For them, the 3 villains leap forward to attack as Jusen desperately begs the young doctor to go. He throws the young disciple into the air with all his might, sending him flying away from the danger. Soaring backward, the youth looks on in shock, realizing he is being ordered to run for his life. He lands hard on the ground, asking what will happen to them. As the opponents charge forward, the elder and Jusen rush into battle, confirming that the disciple's only mission is to escape. The young man continues to fly through the air, watching his 2 allies bravely face the 3 men. He lands and looks back, thinking that if he joins the fight, they might stand a chance to win. With a determined expression, he considers turning back to help them. Ignoring the order to flee before he can move, a blade suddenly flashes past his face, swung by one of Yaya's henchmen. The attacker brings his weapon down while the others fight Josen and the elder near the creek. The disciple just barely dodges the blow as the blade slams into the ground right beside him. The man who attacked him smirks, confident that he has the young physician. Cornered and defenseless, however, the disciple uses the opening to get to his feet and sprints away into the nearby forest. He runs as fast as he can, panting as he tells himself that following their orders was the right choice. He has a grim vision of Juice and the Elder, defeated, trying to convince himself that he is just running away. As he flees, he questions what he can do. And he has only just started learning martial arts. He tells himself he is simply fulfilling their request and must deliver the message to save the village. The young man thinks of his master, certain that he would not be running if he were a Pinnacle Realm expert. He pants while running through the forest, his mind filled with conflicting thoughts and growing doubt. His eyes widen as a sudden realization dawns on him, the weight of his decision pressing down. Stopping in a clearing, he recalls that Juicen chose to stay and fight, despite not being a powerful master. With a determined look, the disciple turns around, his resolve hardening as he makes a new choice. The rustling of leaves marks his change of heart as he prepares to head back to the fight. He sprints back through the forest, path no longer fleeing from danger, but rushing straight towards it. Pushing himself to his limit, he races back, determined to stand with his newfound allies. He recalls a time he helped a bullied child, feeling proud, like a hero even though he got beaten up. But now he finds himself wishing the road were longer, hoping the fight would be over when he arrives. The disciple admits that he is filled with cowardly thoughts, a stark contrast to his past self. Despite his fear, he continues running toward the battle, pushing through his own hesitation. He finally arrives back at the creek, watching from a distance as Jason and the Elder fight the three villains. The young man knows that if he turns his back on them now, he will be doomed to a life of endlessly running away. In the thick of the fight, the village guardian throws a powerful punch, his face a mask of fierce determination. The disciple peeks out from behind a tree, his mind racing as he tries to figure out how he can possibly help them. Juicen holds his staff at the ready, breathing heavily as he prepares to face his opponents. Physician Yamam smirks, confident in his victory as he brandishes his sword and prepares to strike. He rushes forward, closing the distance between him and Jason with a swift, aggressive charge. Josen reacts by leaping into the air, positioning himself to bring his staff down with incredible force. With a determined shout, he unleashes a technique called Evil Hound Blaze upon his enemy. His staff connects with one henchman's sword, but Physician Yamam uses the opening to launch a surprise attack from the side. Juicen is caught off guard, his eyes widening in shock as he sees the other blades swinging toward him. He twists his body to block the unexpected strike, the impact jarring him as steel meets wood. The young warrior grits his teeth, struggling to hold his ground against the powerful, relentless assault. Physician Yamam acknowledges that the beggar is tough, showing a hint of surprise at his opponent's strength. He follows up with a powerful spinning attack, mocking Jiren and challenging him to run away. Juizhen barely manages to block the heavy sword, his eyes wide with strain as he struggles to hold the line. The force of the blow shatters his staff, sending him reeling backward. As the Elder shouts his name in alarm, the old man yells at his disciple to get up and pull himself together, urging him to keep fighting. Before he can react, the Elder is struck by a powerful blow that sends him flying backward. A henchman with an axe closes in, telling the Guardian that this is no time to be worrying about. The villain grins maliciously as the old man hits the ground, barely managing to catch himself with his hands. The axe wielder scoffs at their determination, calling their struggle to the bitter end pathetic. The Elder angrily retorts that even crawling through filth or corpses is better than being complete trash. The henchman dismisses his words, declaring that both he and Juicen, the dead meat and should just give up. He then cruelly asks if the old man wants to watch his disciple get hacked up to be used as fertilizer. The Elder glares up from the ground as his opponent calls him a pathetic, greedy old man. Juicen watches the exchange, his expression hardening with resolve. Despite the overwhelming odds against them, he defiantly stomps, his foot on the ground, showing that he has no intention of surrendering to the villains. The young warrior calls the idea of giving up nonsense, his broken staff lying uselessly on the ground nearby. Seeing the Elder is defenseless, the henchman leaps forward with his axe raised, ready to deliver the final blow. Just as the axe is about to fall, Jason shouts for him to hold it, his voice filled with desperation. A sudden powerful force sends the henchman flying, while Physician Yom is also knocked back. In the chaos, the axe wielder quickly recovers and charges again, yelling at the fallen Elder to just die already. At the same time, Physician Yum presses his attack on Juicen, their weapons clashing in a furious exchange. Lying on the ground, the old man clenches his fist around a handful of dirt, a last-ditch effort to turn the tide. As the axe wielder charges, the Elder flings the dirt into his face, creating a crucial opening. The villain flinches, momentarily blinded by the sudden spray of earth and grit in his eyes. A brief memory flashes through the Elders, kind of him and a young Jason looking over their home. Back in the present, the henchman shouts in surprise as the dirt hits him, completely caught off guard. Seizing the opportunity, the Elder lunges forward and tackles his opponent, locking him in a tight embrace. Enraged, the villain growls that the old man has finally decided to die, raising his axe high. Johnson watches in horror as the henchman brings the weapon down on the defenseless elder. The old man's hands are clasped firmly, refusing to let go even as the sharp blade descends. With a final agonizing cry, he takes the full force of the axe strike directly in his back. Junyin screams, his face contorted in anguish as he witnesses his master's ultimate sacrifice. Jason is frozen in shock, looking up at the tragic scene unfolding before him. The henchman strikes again, and Jason can only curse as the elder takes another brutal blow. Mortally wounded, the elder calls out to his disciple, his teeth clenched in agony and determination. He tells Jason that now is the time for him to earn his keep. Accepting his own fate fueled by rage, Jihyern grabs a piece of his broken staff and leaps toward the villain. The elder looks on, a mixture of pain and pride in his eyes, as he watches his student's final stand. As Jason attacks the axe wielder, Physician Yum charges in from the side, aiming to strike him down. Suddenly, a rock flies through the air and smacks Physician Yum directly in the head, stopping his attack. The young physician has returned to the fight, his face set with grim determination as he prepares another stone. Physician Yum stumbles back, cursing the disciple for interfering with his plan. Jusen seizes the moment, bringing his weapon down with full force and crushing the henchman's face. The disciple stands ready as the battlefield shifts with Juice and finishing one foe while another is down. He watches Jusen, who now stands panting, holding the bloodied remnant of his staff. Physician Yum gets to his feet, glaring at the young physician with a look of pure shock and anger. He angrily tells the disciple he should have stayed away now, charging forward to kill the boy who returned. Physician Yum leaps into the air, vowing to chop the young man up. As he swings his sword down, the disciple looks up in sheer terror, frozen in place and unable to defend himself from the attack. Before the blade can connect, his master appears in a flash, blocking the corrupt doctor's path. The elder calmly remarks that his student really did come all this way just to find a disease. With the fight over, the disciple looks at the aftermath, calling out to his master in relief. A short distance away, Justin cradles the fallen guardian, crying as he mourns his master's sacrifice. The master's gaze hardens as he takes in the scene, his expression turning cold and serious. The young man points at their captive, confirming that he is Dr. Yum, the man behind the plague. Yum trembles on the ground in fear as the disciple shouts that he is the true culprit. The master looks down at the terrified man, his voice calm as he asks if the accusation is true. With a simple gesture, he uses his internal energy to force the corrupt physician to his knees. The elder then demands to know why he created the plague, his eyes fixed on the man below him. His student angrily explains that Yum did it for money, kicking him. As the man begs for mercy, the master questions his true motives, asking what his real goal was besides collecting cash. Yum quickly agrees to talk, offering them powerful medicine in a desperate he to spare his life. He then asks if they have ever heard of a legendary herb called the black peony. The young disciple is shocked, recognizing the name of the incredibly rare and powerful medicine. The black peony is a supreme medicine that blooms with powerful yun energy. In a world of chaos, it is known as the hero's flower, an elite elixir just one step below the legendary. The Humdan. In order to cultivate it, the flower must grow on a battlefield, feeding on the remains of the fallen. The corrupt doctor offers up the legendary flower, insisting that he has the real black peony. He gestures toward a dark cave where a faint purple glow emanates from within its depths. Inside, a single black peony blooms its petals. Radiating a powerful and mystical energy, the disciple is stunned, wondering if Yoham went through all this trouble just to trade the flower for his life. The young man angrily says that Yowen's real plan was to kill anyone who touched the flower. Before he can continue his rant, his master grabs his shoulder, telling him to calm down. The elder explains that the true black DNA grows by feeding on death, which is why Yohem gathered bodies. If an ordinary person touches the flower, they will be overwhelmed by its powerful energy and die. Yoham confirms this, adding that if all the villagers had died, their bodies would have become food for the flower. He planned to poison them all, buying time to harvest the flower and use it. For his own dark purposes, Yohem quickly denies the accusation, claiming he planned to process the difficult herb and offer it to them. The master smiles, remarking that for a village doctor, Yohem certainly has some deep knowledge. The corrupt physician laughs nervously, trying to downplay his expertise as nothing but a cheap trick. The elder then turns his attention to the black peony, adding that it's too bad Yoram's plan had a flaw. He casually plucks the flower from the ground, declaring that he is not an ordinary person. Yohem stammers in shock, warning the elder that touching the flower bare-handed will surely kill him. But his warning is useless, as the master swiftly defeats him without suffering any ill effects. The two of them walked past the fallen doctor, their grim task in the village finally nearing its end. Holding the flower, the master calmly states that he will handle matters of life and death himself. He then looks out at the mountains, complaining about why so many trashy doctors keep appearing. Dark purple energy seems to emanate from the defeated physician, as the elder continues his rant. He wonders if these people think that simply learning medicine automatically makes them real physicians. The young disciple looks on with concern, asking his master if what he's doing is truly okay. The elder confidently reassures him, asking if he thinks he got his infamous nickname just from gambling. He orders his student to take juice and back while he absorbs the toxins from the corpse. And the flower? The disciple does as he's told, placing a reassuring hand on Jason's shoulder as he looks back with concern. The master sits in a meditative posture, the black peony resting in his lap as he prepares to begin. He holds his hands out, and a powerful wave of dark purple energy begins to swirl around him. The evil energy from the corrupted ground rises up, drawn toward the master's immense power. It takes the form of ghostly animals, the souls of the creatures used to create the deadly corpse poison. The young disciple watches in amazement as the intense poison is sucked into his master's body. He shields his face from the overwhelming force, commenting on the sheer intensity of the poison. The dark energy whirls into a massive vortex, its power threatening to overwhelm everything in its path. The young physician's eyes are wide with a mix of fear and awe at the incredible display of control. The swirling vortex of evil energy condenses into a single pulsating mass, its power contained. The master opens his eyes, his expression calm and focused. As he completes the difficult process, the disciple tentatively asks if it's over. Still reeling from the incredible sight he just witnessed, the elder then asks if he saw that. Wanting to make sure his student understood the lesson, he explains that only at this level can one truly call it energy manipulation. As the flower turns white, he then offers the purified flower to his student, who looks on in a state of complete shock. He explains that he has absorbed all the poison, so his student can now take the flower without side effects. The master adds that the boy is more than qualified to receive it since he uncovered the physician's plot. The elder then closes his eyes, thinking to himself that it doesn't matter as long as he deals with the poison. The disciple's gaze falls upon Dusan, who is still mourning the loss of his master. He turns back to his teacher, insisting that he is not qualified at all to receive such a powerful reward. The young man says he just ran off and only came back to throw a rock, afraid of being called a coward. The master points to Jusin, asking why he looks at the disciple, like he really is qualified. He explains that it's harder to come back after running away than to face things head on. One can only do that if they confront their duty and accept their mistakes, a true sign of courage. He adds that only an idiot wouldn't run, and that in the end, not turning away from duty is enough. The young disciple is moved by his master's words. His expression a mixture of surprise and gratitude. He looks down at the glowing white flower, a powerful elixir that now represents his growth and courage. His master jokes that he may have given away too much wisdom. Pleased with his student's progress, the young man lost in thought, impulsively eats the flower. While the elder is still talking, the master is stunned, asking why he ate it now, to which the disciple nervously asks if he wasn't supposed to. The disciple panics, his face a mask of shock as the full weight of his mistake settles in. They begin their journey back to the village, the air heavy with the aftermath of the recent battle. The master scolds his student for eating an elixir without knowing the proper cultivation method. He tells him to stand steady and mind his breath and posture, using the Swanwu divine art he was taught. He sighs, calling his student an idiot for being so reckless despite his intelligence. The elder then gives him detailed instructions on how to properly circulate his energy to absorb the flower. The disciple shouts back that he's already doing it right. Frustrated by his master's constant nagging, he focuses on his posture and breathing, trying to follow the complex instructions as best he can. The master watches him with a critical eye, pleased with his student's progress but still pushing him harder. A powerful light blue aura begins to surround the young man as he successfully channels the elixir's energy. His teacher explains that he will gather his energy before they reach the village to be ready for anything. He adds that if the boy trains well, he will gain a powerful new ability from the black peony. The young man feels the incredible surge of power, his eyes wide with amazement at the flower's effects. The master watches, secretly impressed by the tremendous power his student is now able to wield. He dismisses his student's excitement, telling him he has a long way to go and must keep practicing. The master tells Jason he seems fine now and should help drag one of the bodies, but Jason pretends his stomach still hurts. As the sun rises, the villagers of Jewel gather outside, their faces a mixture of hope and uncertainty. The young disciple stands before the crowd, preparing to share the good news, while the others stand by with the fallen elder. He announces that the plague will soon be gone, promising that the herbal decoction will have them recovered within 3 days. The villagers erupt into cheers and applause, their expressions filled with joy, but Jusin looks down with a heavy heart. While the disciple is surrounded by the grateful villagers, Jusin quietly walks away, carrying the body of his master. The elder watches him go, a somber and thoughtful look on his face, as he observes the bittersweet scene. Alone against the warm glow of the sun, Jusin stands silently with his master's body, his journey of mourning just beginning. He turns his back to the celebrating village and begins to walk away, seeking a place to lay the guardian to rest. His solitary figure moves away from the stretcher, leaving the footprints of the villagers and the past behind him. He continues his solemn walk, carrying the weight of his grief as he moves further into the wilderness. The village of Joel, now saved from the plague, rests peacefully in the valley. a symbol of the elder's sacrifice. Meanwhile, back in the village, smoke rises from the rooftops as life slowly begins to return to normal. The young physician holds a branch that glows with a faint green aura. Using his energy to prepare the cure in a ready stance, he channels his power into large pots, brewing the life-saving medicine for the remaining patients. Sometime later, the disciple practices his staff techniques, honing his newfound skills and power. He suddenly senses his master approaching, and wonders what he's up to now. His curiosity piqued, the elder scolds him for kicking up dust near the decoction, but the youth complains about the sword training his teacher, tells him to pack up as they have a long way to go, but the disciple protests, wanting to stay. He suggests they stay for 5 more days, secretly hoping to be pampered as a hero by the grateful villagers. The master explains that he never planned to come to the village and only stopped because Josen asked. The disciple is shocked, asking why a hero who saved the village would now be starving somewhere. The elder explains that a beggar who kills, even for a good reason, is common in their guild. He continues, saying that once a beggar kills, it is no longer begging but something else entirely. With a somber look, he clarifies that it becomes a tribute, a heavy price for taking a life. The disciple asks what will happen to Jusen now, his voice filled with concern for the village hero. The master states that he will have to choose his own path, for that is the nature of killing. The villagers gathered to say their goodbyes, their faces filled with gratitude as they waved to their saviors. The disciple waves back happily, while his master walks on his thoughts already. On their next journey, the two of them leave Joel village behind, continuing their wanderings as master and student. The disciple turns to his master, a look of understanding on his face as he realizes their final task. They arrive at the village graveyard, a quiet place of rest where the past and present meet. The master spots Drew around, sitting by a freshly dug grave, and announces that they have found him. The young warrior stands before his master's grave, his hands clasped in a gesture of respect and mourning. The two newcomers bowed their heads, paying their respects to the fallen guardian of Jewel Village. The master remains silent for a moment, his thoughts turning to the brave man who gave his life for his home. Joanne thanks them for coming, saying that he owes them a great debt, and wishing them a peaceful journey ahead. The disciple asks if he has been at the grave all night, and if he has eaten anything. He offers Juan a wrapped meal, which the grieving man accepts with a quiet word of thanks. The young physician asks if he will continue to stay in the village, to which Juan confirms he will. He then adds that it's okay, because surviving however you can is what being a beggar is all about. The disciple recalls his master's words about the nature of killing, his expression turning thoughtful. He then offers Ju on a new path, inviting him to come with them on their journey. The young man promises to take him somewhere he can beg freely, adding that the elder would have wanted that. He turns to his master for approval, the hopeful and eager smile on his face as Joanne looks on in confusion. Joanne is moved by the offer, his eyes wide with a mixture of shock and gratitude as he agrees to join them. The two young men run to catch up with the master, who scolds them for leaving without a word. The elder tells his student to keep practicing his divine art, but the disciple eagerly asks for sword training instead. Joanne asks where they are headed, while the master comments that he thought his student would never ask. The disciple then asks for their destination, while his teacher smugly remarks that a genius should know. The elder finally reveals their next stop, announcing that they are heading to the city of Luoyang. Their destination is home to a legendary technique known as the sword that pierces the heart. The master explains that while the name is plain, it is the sword style closest to the true essence of combat. He demonstrates one of the core stances, a swift and precise move he calls the Sparrow Wasp. The next stance he shows them is Ivy, a fluid and unpredictable technique that mimics the plant's movements. Finally, he demonstrates Point, a powerful and direct thrust that embodies the essence of the style. He tells them that these 3 stances are the foundation of the legendary heart-piercing sword style. The master then unleashes a massive wave of energy, showcasing the incredible power of the technique. Jason and the disciple are left speechless, their faces the mask of awe and disbelief at the master's skill. He turns to them with a confident smile, asking if they think they can master the difficult sword style. Both Jason and the disciple stare blankly, their expressions a mixture of confusion and exhaustion. The young man explodes in frustration, shouting that he has no idea how he's supposed to master the technique. He argues with his master, saying that he's only been training for a month and can't possibly send a tree flying. Jusen watches their bickering, his face a mask of weary amusement as they go back and forth. Frustrated, the disciple asks Jubson to try the stance. Confident that his own form is correct, the master praises Jason's perfect form, much to the disciple's annoyance, who claims it looks the same. He then tells his student to try again, continuing to correct his posture with a critical eye. The two bicker some more, with the master calling his student greedy and the disciple telling him to respect his elders. Their days are filled with intense training, practicing the secret serpent step every morning. In the evenings they focus on the purple cloud steps, honing their footwork and agility until sundown. After a month of sparring, Jusen has won all 30 matches, much to the disciple's dismay. Jusen observes the strange and complex relationship between the master and his student. He finds it odd how their dynamic shifts from respectful to playfully antagonistic. In an instant, at times they seemed like a close master and disciple, working together in perfect harmony. But in a flash, they're like an uncle and nephew, constantly mocking and teasing each other. They seem to treat everything as a joke, constantly teasing and mocking each other with mischievous grins. But beneath that playful exterior, there is a deep hidden respect and expectation between master and student. Jason thinks to himself that he also had a master like that, one who pushed him to be his best. He remembers his own teacher, the man who guided him and shaped him into the person he is today. As they prepare to part ways, Jusin politely offers the elder dinner, much to the disciples' amusement. The master advises Jusin change his name if he settles in Chongqing to avoid trouble from the Dural village incident. Their journey brings them to the gates of Chongqing, a bustling city where Jusin will begin his new life. He thanks them for all their help, and the master replies that they will see each other again if fate allows Juice, and bows his head in a final gesture of gratitude and respect. His heart filled with a mix of sadness and hope. He watches them go, waving a final goodbye as they disappear into the crowded rainy streets. The people of Chengyan rush through the rain, their faces a blur as the two travelers continue on their way. The disciple looks back with a hint of sadness, watching his new friend start a new chapter of his life. His master teases him for being sad about losing his sparring partner, whom he could never beat. The young man's face flushes with annoyance, but he can't deny the truth in his teacher's words. He silently vows to become stronger, determined to one day surpass his master and his friend. The disciple yells in frustration, claiming he almost won their last match. But his master has already vanished. He calls out for his teacher, who tells him to stop whining and follow as they walk through the rainy city. Their journey leads them to a small, unassuming building with a sign that reads Fang Family Smithy. The elderly blacksmith is shocked by their request to borrow his forge, his eyes wide with disbelief. The master explains that the advice for using the forge is the right to watch his student work. He boasts that the blacksmith will get to see the world's greatest metallurgy from a ringside seat. The old man reluctantly agrees, and the two travelers enter the forge, ready to begin their work. The master and disciple raid the smithy for materials, much to the blacksmith's annoyance. The elder eagerly accepts the blacksmith's request for a sickle. Much to his student's confusion, the young man grumbles about the sudden request, but his master tells him to stop complaining and get to work. He reminds his student of their deal, that he would pay for his training with goods and services. The disciple admits that he has never made a sickle before, but he knows he must fulfill his end of the bargain. Smoke billows from the smithies. As the young man begins his work, the fire of the forge burning bright, the blacksmith listens intently to the sound of the hammering, his ear catching the rhythmic beat. He remarks that the sound goes well with the rain, and that the young man will make a decent blacksmith. The blacksmith reminisces about his youth, a nostalgic look in his eyes as he recalls his early... Suddenly, his eyes snap open, his expression a mixture of shock and disbelief at what he sees. A perfectly crafted sickle glows with a faint blue aura, its blade sharp, and its handle sturdy. He takes the tool from the young man, his voice trembling as he stammers in amazement. The disciple explains that it's his first time making a sickle, and asks if it's enough to be considered payment. The blacksmith's hand closes around the handle, his fingers tracing the smooth, expertly crafted lines. He raises the sickle high, a look of awe on his face as he examines the incredible workmanship. With a sudden powerful swing, he brings the blade down on a nearby bamboo raft, much to the disciple's surprise. The sharp steel slices through the thick bamboo with ease, leaving a clean and perfect cut. The disciple asks if the blacksmith has become a master, impressed by the old man's sudden display of skill. The blade cuts through the ropes holding the raft together, its sharpness a testament to the young smith's talent. The disciple calls out to the elder, asking where he is going as the old man walks away with the bamboo. The master tells him not to worry and to get ready to forge the sword, adding that they will be here soon. The young man realizes his mistake, a look of concern on his face as he understands the true situation. He turns to see a group of shadowy figures approaching, their presence sending a chill down his spine. The disciple has a dark premonition. Sensing the evil intent of the approaching figures, the blacksmith demands to know who they are. As the group of men surround the smithy, the young man looks on nervously, unsure of how to respond to the sudden and aggressive intrusion. The leader of the group, a man with stars in his eyes, asks how on earth he made the incredible weapon. Another man, his eyes also filled with stars, holds up a sword, its blade intricately designed. He explains that the sickle can cut through weapons made by the best swordsmiths in Chongqing. The blacksmith declares that it can slice through them like tofu without a single nick on its blade. The group of men bow their heads, begging the young man to teach them his incredible technique. Their eyes sparkle with greed as they offer to do anything just to have a weapon made by him. They begin to argue amongst themselves, each one demanding that their own weapon be forged first. The blacksmith peeks out from behind the master, a look of fear and uncertainty on his face. The master holds out his hand, a silent and intimidating gesture that immediately quiets the crowd. He announces that the entrance fee to watch the young man work is 2 silver. A smug grin on his face, the group of men eagerly pay the fee, their desire for a superior weapon outweighing their greed.